Good morning. 10 o'clock seems early for some.
Not to those of us who have to be up at 8.
Good morning and welcome to this special plenary panel, Keeping Our Stories Alive, the Past, Present, and Future of Sapphic Publishing. We're living through interesting times. While extraordinary to many of us, these times are not unprecedented to others in our community, including many in this room. We face many challenges. Book bans are increasing across the United States, removing access to literature in schools and libraries. Generative AI models are trained on our books without compensating authors. And we see the erosion of our rights, particularly for people of color and our trans and non-binary community. In light of all of this and more, it felt like we needed to do a little something different this year. Rather than a keynote, we decided to have a panel discussion about where we've been, where we are, and where we can go, even with these challenges. To learn from our past, to inform our future, and to hear from many different voices. This is our opportunity to learn from a range of creators active in the Sapphic literary world, including authors, publishers, and editors, whose careers span decades, and some who are newer to the scene. Our panelists span a variety of perspectives, both literary and experiential, and we're fortunate to have all these folks here today. This discussion will be moderated by Anna K. Wren. As I contemplated putting this panel together, I knew we needed a strong moderator. Someone with the skills and personal demeanor to draw the best from the folks on stage and to engage the audience. I saw Anna lead last year's By the Book, Crafting Complex by Characters with Compassion and Care panel. And she led this very important panel with sensitivity, empathy, understanding, and humor. And when I saw her resume, well, I knew she was the right person for this very special event. Our moderator, Anna K. Wren, is a retired professor and researcher turned full-time writer who lives and works in Southern Appalachia. For decades, she taught at public universities in the American South, focusing on the intersection of gender, culture, race, health, and communication. In her research, she specialized in interviewing, group facilitation, and story circles, her goal being to amplify erased voices and suppressed stories. After publishing dozens of nonfiction works, she turned her attention toward writing novels about queer women in Southern dark academia, and she's published 2 books with Ilva Publishing. As a novelist, her goal remains the same as it did when she was a professor and researcher, to amplify the voices and stories that have been oppressed, erased, and disenfranchised. Please join me in welcoming our moderator, Anna K. Wren.
I'm going to start with a question. How are you?
Loaded question. Horse.
Really? How are you?
Karaoke night was yesterday.
I'm Anna K. Wren, and I just appreciate the trust, and this is an honor. I am not an expert in Sapphic publishing. I am, as you know, if you follow me online, I say I am a toddler. These are the experts. You are the experts. What I am is someone who helps with facilitation, especially around difficult subjects. I want you to know something. I am comfortable with all emotions And sometimes during these fraught times, we get hot on the collar, under the collar. But as Rumi says, this being human is a guest house. Welcome all emotions, for they may be clearing you out for something divine. So with that said, we are going to talk about some housekeeping first. There is, number one, take care of yourself. I mean that. There is nothing off topic up here. I need you to hear that. And I need that to settle within you. Because some of these brave, and I do mean that, brave panelists may bring up something that hurts you, soul deep hurts you, or scares you. Your priority is to stand up and leave. Please don't, I'd ask you not to storm out, but just stand up, walk out, take care of yourself, and come back. We will be here for you. We've got 2 hours. We'll be here for you. So take care of yourself, please, if you are triggered.
That's the door that slams.
That's okay. Thank you.
That's the one that slams.
Thank you so much.
If you
The second is please no interruption. I get it. I usually, when I do smaller panels, I love when people have those hands up. But we have people who have given their time, their energy, and expertise. This has been in the works for for us, longer than that, but at least half a year. And so please let's hold questions to the end. If you need to go to the restroom, please do. There are 2 floor managers. There's Tressa Cherry. Thank you so much. Would you hold your hand up? And then there's Jade Lovewell. They are here to make sure that the discussion is as respectful and helpful as possible. So if something happens with the sound, just pass it to them, and they're there to help. They will also be taking the mics around the room. And Jade, would you like to say how? So you will ask people, raise hand, and when they are identified during the Q&A session, they will come to you. They will make their way to you unless accessibility is a problem, then the microphone will come to you. Did I get that right? Thank you. Thank you for that. Keep in mind that this will be recorded, so keep that in mind. I will remind you that Betsy Carswell, and I give her thanks. Let's start with that first. Our CGS board president. Back in October, this magnificent witchy woman approached me and said, hey, I've got an idea. I think we're going to have to talk about the past, present, and future of sapphic publishing instead of a keynote. Would you be willing to come on board? And Betsy and I co-developed this, with the understanding that we need to honor the roots, and we're going to be speaking to that today, honoring the roots of sapphic publishing, what's happening currently, and where are we growing. But we have to understand those roots first. So I think we're going to get started with the panelists. First, let's welcome Barbara Smith.
We're doing nothing. We're doing nothing.
I already approached Barbara and was like, hi, I'm your moderator. Anyway, we're going to have a delightful conversation. Anyway, can I get you to sign my book? Very gracious. Barbara Smith, truly. Okay, are we going to... Are we?
This is the coolest.
I was like, no. Okay. Barbara Smith is a black feminist pioneer, a lesbian activist, author, lecturer, and publisher. She co-founded the Combahee River Collective, we will be talking about that, which yielded some of the most significant intellectual frameworks of our time, including identity politics, which would give rise to the analytical approach intersectionality. In 1980, Barbara broke new literary ground with The Kitchen Table, Women of Color Press, the first U.S. publisher of books for women of color. In 2005, she became both an elected official here in Albany, New York, and a Nobel Peace Prize nominee. Barbara Smith has been published in the New York Times, The Black Scholar, Ms., and The Nation, among others. I will also say that the 25th anniversary edition of the Truth That Never Hurts, Writings on Race, Gender, and Freedom was released last year. So make sure you pick up a copy. Thank you for your time. J.J. Arias. No. J.J. Arias began her writing journey with fan fiction, eventually becoming the best-selling sapphic author of books like the 2025 release For Love and Blood and Fury, a paranormal romance. A proud Cuban-American from Miami, Arias, J.J., incorporates her heritage into heartfelt, character-driven romances that blend emotional depth and witty banter. She and her wife live in South Florida with too many cats. There are no too many cats. And a pair of unhinged Maltepoos and a melancholy pit bull. And I understand you just started a new podcast, Yapping and Yammering, on Patreon, with Quinn Riley. So welcome, J.J. Arias. Luke Dreamer, who's one of the busiest people here. I was trying to track him down forever and could not, and one of the kindest people. Author of the Heart series, Luke Dreamer is a trans man and dad who loves to write queer stories with heart and soul. A wanderer at heart, he enjoys the great outdoors, building things, and mountain biking. And I understand you have a fold-up kayak. Okay, we're going to be talking. Not today. Not right now. So please welcome Luke. Melina Mackay, because you schooled me like last year, and I appreciate that. I love it when people tell me I mispronounce. But remember, I'm from Appalachia. I'm going to mispronounce your word. And I guarantee you're going to mispronounce mine. Melina is a Lambda Literary and Golden Crown Literary Society award-winning sapphic fiction author of The Headmistress and her current book, Reverence, her most recent release. She is a romance fanatic, currently splitting her time between trying to write a novel and succumbing to the temptation of reading another fanfic story. A cat whisperer, and she's wearing the heels. The 4-inch heels. She secretly dreams of her extensive Converse collection. And I will say it was my pleasure to be in the Bella vendor when they were digging around for one final copy of Reverence, because that is so popular right now. So welcome. Please welcome. It's a cliche to say that someone doesn't need an introduction, but I will introduce Radcliffe. Okay, let's see. Hopefully my choral ensemble training will come in here. I've got to take a breath. Golden Crown Literary Society Award winner, Lambda Literary Award winner, the Saints and Sinner Literary Hall of Fame recipient. These are just some of the accolades that Radcliffe has received. Editor of over 20 anthologies and author of over 70 novels, Radcliffe also founded Bold Strokes Books in 2004. Can you believe that? Celebrated anniversary. And is the current president and publisher. Some exciting news. In 2021, Radcliffe was named one of Advocate's Women of the Year, and in 2025, she made the Curve Power List in recognition of her significant contributions to the queer community. Welcome, Radcliffe. Rachel Spangler, a.k.a. Ray, four-time Lambda Literary Award finalist and an Ibby Golden and Rainbow Award winner, Rachel Ray. Are you okay with me calling you Ray throughout this? Wonderful. Ray is the best-selling author of more than 24 books, 24 novels, also known as, and also is a senior romance editor for Bywater Books, and somehow continues to find time to mentoring emerging authors. We're going to be talking about your concept of friendships. So thank you for that. We're going to be talking about that. In 2025, they found their own publishing company, LLC, Bigger Table Books, to further embody their commitment to creating safe and inclusive spaces to tell queer stories. They live with their wife and son in Western New York and always make time for good romance, whether reading it, writing it, or living it. Welcome, Ray. Rosalind Sinclair. You guys make my job easy. You know that's all I'm going to be doing today is one word. Stand back. You applaud. Did Anna do anything? No, she just announced. Okay, Rosalind Sinclair is the best-selling author of sapphic romances, Truth and Measure, Above All Things, The Ex-Ingredient, The Lily and the Crown, and her newest, The Woman from the Waves. Already a bestseller, right? Yep. Give me 30%, I'm your agent. Her work has been published in English, French, and German. A former literature professor and born storyteller, she began writing at the age of 7 and never stopped. Her books are full of twists, turns, and passionate love between women. She lives in the greater Philadelphia area with her wife and fellow author. There's Carrie Bird. So welcome, Rosalind, please. She knows she's not last. I mean, I'm saying last, but it's Virginia, but she knows she's not last. Golden Crown Literary Society award-winning author, Virginia Black. You guys are making my job so easy. Has penned best-selling books, Consecrated Ground, No Shelter But the Stars, and a recent release in Sindan, all from Bywater Books. Her short stories appear in numerous anthologies from Sapphire Books, Bliss Press, Bold Strokes Books, Bywater Books, and Flashpoint Publications. In 2024, she became a Lambda Fellow. Congratulations. That's no joke. Joining one of the nation's most prestigious LGBTQ writing residencies, she lives in the Pacific Northwest. Welcome. Woo! So we are going to begin with a question that sounds strange, since there are readers and writers and publishers and reviewers in the room. But I like to, if you've been on one of my panels, you know that I like to start common ground. So what is your working definition of sapphic literature? what is your definition of sapphic literature? It's fine. It's fine. Guys, I want, they'll answer.
I'll jump.
Please, right.
Since history is sort of my thing, and I figure that's the only thing I can probably contribute is history, ancient times. The term sapphic itself isn't new. I mean, it appears in feminist essays in the 1970s, for example, in the 1980s, but more in either critical essays or politically motivated works of the time. But now, probably in the last 10 years, it's taken on a different life as our culture and our community has taken on a different life. It's really a more inclusive term that involves basically both the position of sexuality and also our identity. So basically, sapphic literature centers characters who love other women. But the sexual identity of those characters is much broader than it once was, where it was only once associated with lesbians. Now it's associated with trans individuals, bisexuals, people who identify as lesbians, binary. So it's really individuals who identify as women whose romantic interest or sexual interest is other women. So we've expanded the term so that we can be more inclusive as authors and publishers.
Thank you. Anybody else like to? What is your definition? How do you think about sapphic literature? And I'll even say, are we scared of the word literature, for example?
No,
I mean,
I'm not,
when we say sapphic literature, go ahead.
I was going to be good.
And so
you're on the panel for it to be you.
2 minutes. I think I really appreciate the clarification, let's call it, of including lesbian fiction under the umbrella of sapphic fiction. I think there is a conversation that happens that I'm not so sure we need to have that conversation at the station about one replacing the other, because that's not what we're doing. It's encompassing, it's enveloping lesbian fiction. I use the terms interchangeably, but that's because I don't just come right out and say I write stories for guys. But I think that clarification that it is encompassing lesbian fiction and not replacing it.
Encompassing lesbian fiction, not replacing it. So who else wants to weigh in? What is your definition of sapphic literature? Please.
I'll take on the literature part, because back when I used to teach, I would teach English, and I would open every semester with a sea of freshmen and sophomores who were there because they had to be, and they would prefer not to be. And I would ask them, what is literature? And there was always the implied capital L, right? And their shoulders start going up to their ears, and they start looking extremely nervous. And what they would always tell me is that literature is intimidating, right? Like, it's the stuff that they had to read and that they didn't understand and that they really struggled with, and that many times they felt alienated from. And so I'm really glad that we are including that big scary word in the conversations that we're having, because in some ways this is a big scary topic, but one that must also be accessible to everyone in this country.
And I was thinking, and I appreciate Virginia talking about this idea of, it is inclusive, not exclusionary. But I was listening during Ann Shade's panel the other day on the joy of reading BIPOC sapphic lit, and I was struck, Barbara. You said when you were reading, you never saw yourself in the pages of sapphic lit, and that I thought was such an important point. And would you speak a bit? I mean, you talked about reading the galleys of Alice Walker's The Color Purple, and a little book. I don't know if it's called. But would you speak to this effort to have sapphic literature be, we're using that term to be inclusive, and yet you say you haven't really seen yourself.
Thank you. It's really a thrill to be here. And my name tag reminds us and me that I'm the Leland class editor from 2 years ago. And I thought it was so delightful. I thought, like, wow, I've never had the name tag quite like this because you know, the honor is right on the name tag. So I really appreciate it. And I appreciate the fact that you put this conference in my hometown so I could highly motivated to be here. When I say that I've never seen myself in sapphic literature, I mean until today. Except perhaps, you know, and this may seem self-aggrandizing, but I think that some of the work in books that I edited, particularly, well, Conditions 5, the Black Women's issue, just came out in 1979, and then Homegirls, which was published in 1983, which was my effort to keep Conditions 5, which is a special issue of a lesbian, feminist, literary, and political magazine, Conditions. That Homegirls is like the, you know, offspring of Conditions 5. There's some work in there that I think resonates with me, but when I say that I've never read a novel, like I'm talking about a leftist, very political, a person involved in nerdery. Your word. I've been telling you about that ever since Thursday. I said, there's a person on this panel and she used the word nerdery because I'm a nerd, of course, you know, but so old that the word nerd did not exist when I was growing up. We were called eggheads. But in any event, like, yeah, I'm looking for that. Just a little, you know, I don't know what to call this. Well, something that I know that you may not is that the book Nazami, which is described by Audre Lorde as a biomythography. It could be a memoir, it could be a novel. She called it a biomythography. She said publicly, and I knew this because we were friends, she said that the reason she wrote that book because when I was quite young, back in the 1970s, I would, and I was out, and by the mid-70s, I would ask, and I did operate in a very literary context as somebody who, you know, went to grad school to teach African American literature, although African American literature could not be studied at the time in any institution, virtually any institution at the time that I was doing my, you know, education. But in any event, I used to ask in gatherings like this at the Modern Language Association or whatever, is it possible to be a black lesbian, you know, writer and activist and live to tell about it, and live to tell about it. That was my kind of question, a catalyst question to get things going. And I also honestly wondered if that was the case. And Audrey said that she thought that maybe she should write about her earlier life because I was asking that question. And also, if you get a copy of Zami, maybe of course you have a copy of Zami, you'll see if you look at the acknowledgments, I actually helped to edit that book. I was asked to. So I feel proud about that. But again, you know, I want to talk about sapphic literature. I think that your definition, Radcliffe, and also what you added, is it's really enlightening for me because I've never thought about sapphic literature until I became familiar with the Golden Crown Literary Society. It was not a term that I had ever heard, and I don't consider, you know, that I actually was involved in publishing sapphic literature, although unbeknownst to me, I guess I was. Thank you.
Thank you.
Something popped up. I just want to ask a more pointed question. What is the possible risk if we use this umbrella term of literature? And I'm wondering again, when we say, "Oh, what is the history of sapphic literature? What is the future of sapphic literature?" and I know I'm asking a double binary or double barrel question, are we risking, does it sound exclusionary? Does it sapphic literature? Does it sound exclusionary? White canon, and what is the risk of using sapphic literature as the domain? I write in sapphic literature.
I don't see that it's a risk. I mean, I don't think that it's an umbrella term that embraces poetry, commercial fiction, general fiction, prose, books. I think that it's not in today's world a scary thing. It might be maybe when you're a freshman in college and you have to take the course, but I think that it's a term that's not problematic anymore. So that's my personal opinion on that one.
I think that we're all a bit preaching to the choir. Is to just show of hands. Is there anyone in here who has not cracked a book recently? We are not.
So we have a little sample bias. Is that what you're saying?
So I don't think any of us are necessarily going to be intimidated or even give much thought to being the word literature.
On the other hand, what would we call it?
Writing.
Yes. Writing.
But that is, well, and that's the lovely thing about language, right? Is that language constantly disappoints us, right? It's human made, and of course it's going to let us down, and so we massage it and go, I think I finally found the label that works, and it doesn't. It's still on a level exclusionary. So I was just curious, as if you're concerned about, I don't know what else you would call it, because I agree. Like you start switching to sapphic books, now what are you excluding? Whose voices are you excluding now? So, thank you. So, Radcliffe, in a 2017 interview, you traced the beginnings of lesbian fiction to the Well of Loneliness. Everybody remembers the Well of Loneliness. And Marianne Kate Martin, in her work, in her words, 20th century lesbian fiction documentary. Yes. Where is Marianne? Right here. Okay, so constantly bringing up the Well of Loneliness, and so I do want to touch base with you. Are we still saying that is the earliest origin of sapphic publishing?
Well, not if you exclude Sappho.
I was going to say, we
That's what I'm
back. A little back. Just a little bit back.
Somebody's gonna say it, right?
A few millennia.
and that's
the
what I kept
answer
saying.
is in the question.
Yeah.
No, I mean, really, I thought a lot about this when I was thinking about the question, and I think that again, it's a question of definition, and sometimes we can limit our conversation with definitions. But I mean, obviously, the term that we're all using today comes from 630 BC from the Greek poet Sappho. In terms of what's widely recognized as the first novel that features a lesbian relationship, it's The Well of Loneliness. It was published in 1928 in Britain. There may be, sure, there are other works that had romantic relationships between women in them, but this was the first recognized and certainly the most probably controversial book of the century in terms of our literature. So I would say yes, that would be accurate.
Because I was thinking, and so I lived in India for just a short time, and I went to Khajuraho temples, and it's beautiful because there are all sorts of images of various various sexual communions, and I thought, what are we missing when we keep saying the earliest origins of Sapphic? And your point is a wonderful, absolutely. We know about Sappho, but what are we missing? How have we whitewashed history that maybe we're overlooking?
How have we?
No, I mean that. I mean that.
we not
That we
is a
keep
simple
pointing to the, kind of again the white English origins of sapphic publishing. What are we missing?
I'm not going to say any more except that just to qualify that it's considered the first novel. I mean, that's the difference. I'm sure there were, many oral stories and poems and many other things throughout history. But
You're all children. I didn't laugh.
I'm not a better person.
I would.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Are you? Are you familiar with the phrase? And I'm not sure who said it. But the future is here. It's just not widely distributed. Right.
Is that the X-Files?
I think that we have lost more than we have. Right, and we have a lot. But we have lost more than we have. I don't say that there isn't any, or there aren't any black lesbian or black sapphic novels or poems or whatever with different publishers or out in the world. I say I don't know where it is. So yes, we will get to the whitewashing, I'm sure. But I think those things exist. We're never going to find them. They're lost. Many of our stories are lost, and what we have is only a fraction of our experience and the people who have written or spoken word or performed that experience. We're never going to know.
We have always been here. I apologize for my.
Are you guys able to hear?
I apologize for my voice. People saw me sing yesterday, but behind. And apparently I should not sing before a keynote panel. We have always been here. And it is simply impossible to believe that queer people, having existed throughout the entirety of humanity, that we have not left things behind. But there has always been a concentrated effort to erase us. Always. Hence, to Virginia's point, we just don't know how much we lost.
Thank you. JJ.
Right. I don't have it.
Why?
She didn't say. She didn't
I don't know
take
what you
it.
heard. I don't know what you heard, but it's not true.
She didn't take it.
So, JJ, I'll put you on the spot, and I just want to hear you talk. As an author, why is it important that we understand our origins? I mean, why don't we oh God, let's just get over the well of loneliness. Let's not even. Why do we need to understand our origins?
I mean, I think as people, we understand ourselves by understanding our history. I think that it's interesting because history has a tendency to repeat, right? People are not that clever or creative. We recreate cycles, and I think we are in another cycle now, and it's somewhere that we have been before, and we always hope we won't be again, but that's just the reality of it. And I think for us, I'm in my 40s, and I'm old enough to remember what things were like when being queer as an umbrella term, or sapphic, or I want to be as inclusive as possible, was a criminalized existence, but not old enough to remember how difficult it was to change that. And my pride has been very cheap, right? It has not cost me my job, my family, my housing, anything I've ever wanted, I've had. So if I am not looking at history, at where we've been, how are we going to know where do we go next, and how do we move on into the better part of this timeline we're living? So I think it's critical.
Luke, you were nodding. Luke, you were nodding. Not nodding off, was nodding. Luke, what's your thinking about why it's important to understand our origins? And you were nodding when JJ was talking.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I could say it better than her, but that's exactly right. You know, we don't know where we're going until we know where we've been, I think. I was thinking about this morning when I was ironing my shirt. I feel like, you know, I spent 35 years as a lesbian, you know, before I transitioned. You know, looking at that history, and, you know, like JJ said, I'm a little bit older than her, but just a little bit. But I feel that, like, I have, you know, I've endured, you know, strong looks, things like that, you know, cocked heads and, like, you know, misunderstandings, things like that. But I've not lost a job because of, you know, being queer, being trans yet. You know, I've been able to find housing, things like that. But I do appreciate, and I think everybody in this room, anybody who's an author, anybody I think who reads books and, you know, feels, obviously has empathy. And you look at who came, you know, before, and you talk to people that came before, and you gain a real understanding. And I think it prepares us for what's to come, because I think, you know, we have not seen the worst of it yet, obviously.
You know, I just want to throw this one point out, because I know that there's at least one person here who had to leave their home state now to go live somewhere else because it's an unsafe place to be. So yes, we need to understand our history in order to understand, in some ways, how good we've got it. But we are also, right in this moment, losing ground. And some of those experiences that happened for many of us in those years, the train is already here.
Thank you. The train is already here. Elena, I think you had a...
I had a small point, because I keep hearing one word, and I'm 40. Since we're disclosing our ages here, but I do remember 41. I'm 41 years old. I'm being like, I'm being fact-checked live. Being fact-checked live. I remember when you couldn't say the word queer. I remember when, not couldn't say, but when it was canceled, that it was something that our community didn't do. And now we use it. It is this cycle of things. I hope we keep reclaiming the things that were taken away from us, including words. So it is just so striking to me how quickly things move for the better, as JJ put it, but also for so much worse, as Luke and Virginia mentioned.
Rosalind, I believe you had some. Thank you.
And to all of the excellent points that have been made about knowing our history, I think it's also worth keeping in mind, now that always, who's writing the history, who's distributing it, how it's being told in the schools. It's not our history, and it's certainly not, I think, like what's going on now, but how do we tell our own, and how do we circulate it among our communities so that at least in the next generations they know our stories for what they are, right? How do we preserve this? Who determines what's worth keeping, what's worth knowing, what's worth passing on? How do we do that as a community? Because a lot of other people aren't going to do it for us.
Yep. Thank you. Strange question, but I want us to play with it. If we were watching Sapphic publishing the movie, what would it look like? And I'm talking like, is it guerrilla? Is it guerrilla filmmaking?
Is
it
Meryl
black and
Streep
white?
the ice queen?
Well, Is it a horror story? I mean, because no, really, like Lynn Ames has talked about how scary those initial days, and I really appreciate the honesty of how naive some of us are. Like, I'm in Sapphic Publishing, and without really understanding Sapphic Publishing, the movie. Radcliffe, what are we doing? We're sitting in the theater. It opens. What do we see on the screen? Is it a horror movie? Is it a sweeping epic? Are we in the moors? Crying?
The moors.
Hey, you want to get it?
Go with the moors. Go with the moors.
You think? A romantic comedy? I mean, I think I'm passing on that one.
It's dystopian.
And I guess part of it is, it's like, when I say Sapphic Publishing the movie, what was the emotion in the early days? What was the feeling? What are we talking, the texture?
I can answer that one.
Okay.
It's joy. I think for those of us, old enough to remember when there wasn't anything available, those very first books, the very first one you found that you could see yourself in, I think that was an electrifying moment. I was 12 when I read Bebo Brinker. And it was the first time I even had the slightest idea that a girl could love another girl, even though I did. But I had no word for it except queer, and at the time, queer was a bad word. So, I think that's what our literature brings, that for that first moment when you first see yourself, is that moment of joy. And, I'm old enough to remember when walking down the streets of Philadelphia and the police would pull up beside us and call us dykes. Which today, you'd say, thank you.
Barbara thought, I would love for you, because we're getting ready to talk about the Combahee River Collective in just the statement in just a second. But I would love for you to talk about those early days, like, again, the texture, the feelings.
Well, my earlier days were a lot earlier than anybody has.
And I apologize, I'm getting ready to interrupt. If you're wearing a lapel mic, thank you, Tressa, for telling me. If you would, when you're answering, turn toward it, apparently when we're turning away. Yeah.
I mean,
if you would just put,
that's
all of you. That's not you, Barbara. That's all.
And I've never had problems with a lapel mic before. Well, I don't have on lapels today. So. Well, now where were we?
We were talking about the early days. I apologize.
Yeah. I think the early days, I think even as a movie, one of my favorite cultural forms would be a combination of genres. I would put at the top of the list, as far as my experience, a horror movie. And I'm being quite serious about that, because I refer to the kitchen table years. They extended from 1980, when we had the idea, came up with the concept. By we, I'm talking about Audrey, Lauren, and myself. And then, from there, we created not the first press for women of color in the United States, because I've been corrected about that. We were the first publisher for women of color in the United States to reach a wide national audience. And we were also the first one that wanted and did publish all women of color. So we were not restricting it to one background, ethnicity, race, nationality, etc. So that's the difference. We reached a wide national audience, and it was a press for all women of color. But as I said, I refer to the kitchen table years, which was basically about 15 years from 1980 to 1995, as some of the worst years of my life. Because when you talked about the opening scene, I was thinking, well, maybe for me, the opening scene would be the day that we moved the press from New York City to Albany. That would have been in 1986, and looked at the bank statement that was sent to us by those who were supposedly running the press. I moved to Albany in 1984, and the bank statement had less than $3 in it. And so that was 1986. We were 5 years. We officially founded in 1981. And so we were 5 years into it. And because I was so stupid, I refuse to let the press die. Now, you can't even hardly, I mean, nowadays probably ride a train or get on a bus or whatever for $3 or do a round trip, for $3. We had less than $3 at the bank in 1986, and yet I said it is not time for this press to end. And I sacrifice profoundly. As far as like the beginning of the press and what we wanted to do, I would describe that maybe as science fiction or whatever, not really science fiction, but futurism, whatever, something that hasn't happened yet, speculative. Oh, speculative fiction, that's what it would be. Because, like that thing about literature, I wanted to get back to that question about literature and why it might be positive to refer to what we create as that is because at the time that we were beginning to try to publish this kind of content, the work was considered to be of no value, absolutely no value, valueless. And that was true for Black literature as well. And and women's literature definitely. And then you add, what we would have called lesbian, literature. I mean, all of these combinations of identities manifested in literary work were considered to be of no value. So to use the L word to describe what it was we were involved in was to assert in some ways that this is just as good as those old dead white men, then that you insist, that we read and be familiar with to be considered to be literate and or have literary aspirations. So it was a lot. I don't want to go on and on about what the conditions of doing that work, what those conditions were. But as I said, it was really challenging. There was joy. I would agree that there was joy because for Kitchen Table, we were taking the reins and the means of production into our own hands. We were very aware of the Virginia Woolf concept of a room of one's own. There's actually, I think, it's even an interview or something that I wrote called A Press of Our Own, with that, kind of feeling of autonomy, and that we're going to get this done. There was a network of people who were publishing this kind of writing, some of whom you may not know about because they did not continue into the present. Diana Press was one of the women's, the Oakland Women's Press Collective. They were publishing Pat Parker and Judy Grahn. Often people were not necessarily writing fiction or novels. My observation, even at the time, was that we were more likely to be writing poetry because you could write poetry, on the fly. You could have a day job and come home and write a poem, finish a poem, polish a poem, or write a couple of poems, if you see what I'm saying. Much harder to write a novel under those kinds of circumstances, although some geniuses like Toni Morrison did. She had a full-time job and she was raising 2 children, as I recollect. I'm talking about the number of children who she was raising. So she would, she didn't get very much sleep, of course, and then, of course, ended up with a Nobel Prize in Literature. Yes, it was a Nobel Prize in Literature. Thank you very much. But anyway, as I said, there was a network of us. There was a press called Daughters. Of course, there was Naiad Press. We know about Naiad. And there was also Firebrand books. And Elizabeth, I won't have your last name. I looked it up. But Elizabeth introduced themselves to me before the panel started with greetings from Nancy K. Bariano. And I told Elizabeth, I said, I was just thinking about Nancy last night because preparing for the panel today, because I was thinking about did we think we were publishing sapphic literature? Now, Kitchen Table never said it was a lesbian press. We were a press for women of color, all women of color. So that included, people who had relationships with women. But I was trying to remember what how Firebrand described itself, and indeed I was right in my memory was confirmed that that my lesbian feminist press or press that published lesbian feminist content. But it was tough. Nobody wanted to know from us, But we went to the American Booksellers Association convention. Some of the most upsetting experiences that I had in those days was with the Black community, particularly the Black literary community. But that's, I already went into that.
Thank you. Thank you. And thanks for just playing with that weird question, because sometimes if we go to a topic this way, we answer in kind of that rehearsed script. But if we go this way at it, we go, wait a second, what? And just listen to the fact that it was filled with joy those early days, and horror, and perseverance, and yet $3 in the bank account, and resilience. It's all in there. So how did the early writings help with representation? And now I'm getting away from the well of loneliness to I'm thinking, and I'm smiling because come on, Pulp Fiction, the Pulp Fiction books that in some ways on the surface look like edgy and woo, but what was the consequence of that? So what are some of those early writings in terms of what were the consequences in terms of visibility and representation? Ray, you were nodding your head. I'm just wondering if you have any thoughts, and that's okay if you're like, no. Anna,
I have largely stayed out of the historical conversation because
that's fine.
I am incredibly young. I am incredibly young.
Someone fact check that.
I am a baby. Really, really just a baby. But no, Brad mentioned, people have mentioned, when we get together, we talk about the first lesbian book that we found, and what that meant to us in that moment. For me, it was Venus and Bee by Rita Mae Brown. And I have to admit, I was a little slow on the uptake because I had never seen these books in the stores, and I found that one, and I was like, oh man, wouldn't it be nice if somebody had written another one like this? I thought I had found the only one. And then I didn't read another one until I was talking to Ms. Smith about...
that was Barbara.
Barbara. Yeah. I was talking to Barbara. I'm very young.
Incredibly young. Incredibly. Hold up. Doesn't matter what she says. It's Ms. Barbara.
Ms. Barbara. No, I can't call her Ms. Barbara because I don't go to church with her.
and you would not have, because I'm never there. Never there.
So then until I got to Illinois State University and I got in a women's studies program, my grandfather's worst nightmare. I went to college and found lesbians and oops. And then I was very blessed that I came up in a program that taught history. And in our queer coalition Pride office, someone had donated classics. And so at that point, I remember sitting on the floor, the little cubicle in the basement of the Student Services building, and I read Anne Bannon, and I read Ben Packer, and I found some early Naiad books, and again, I still didn't know that this was happening in contemporary, because someone had clearly downsized, some lesbian couple had downsized at some point and donated bookshelves full of books, but they were largely from the 80s, and that was history to me, and so I got to read the history. I told you I'm a baby. And so I got to read the history before I got to read the contemporary. And I think that has influenced my career tremendously. I think that those stories, when you were talking about why we study history, I was kind of thinking at it from a different angle, that your stories tell you who you are, and my family's really into genealogy. Like, my grandfather has papers tying us back to like Richard III, and I grew up on those stories of, and my father's family came out of a Cherokee orphanage in Oklahoma. That's where their stories end. And so I grew up with these stories of being descended from colonizers and colonized, and we passed these things down, but no one passed down queer stories to me. These were not the culture that I was raised in, and so I learned it from our books, and that I think has shaped my sense of who I am in this community, just as an individual, but also as a writer, that I have always, from day one, had a strong sense of this being my legacy, and because other people handed that legacy to me, I am aware that someday I will hand it to someone else.
I know what I'm about to say is really controversial, but it goes back to what Ray was saying. Stories matter. And I'll fight you on that. No, stories matter. We know that. One of my areas of research was in essence this: how a culture, and often subtly, centralizes certain stories and hip checks, knocks other stories to the margin. What are sometimes called decentralized stories. So then it comes up to certain communities then to say, no, I'm going to centralize the own story. And this is why we're turning now to the concept of, or the rise of intersectionality in sapphic publishing. I want to read a couple of quotes. First is from Dorothy Allison in her 2015 GCLS conference keynote, talking about, we were absent in stories. And so why do we write stories? Why do we read stories? In part, our attempts to make ourselves, quote, real in the world. Real in the world. Bringing us to 1977, the Combahee River Collective, co-founder, co-author, Barbara Smith, first published their statement. The collective wrote, our politics initially spring from the shared belief that black women are inherently valuable, that our liberation is necessary. So we write, in part, as Ray was talking about, because these stories matter. But not just stories as a monolith. The interaction of the intersection of our identities. So I'm going to start, and Barbara, if you want to start on this, but JJ, I know that you have asked that you could speak on intersectionality too, so I'm good deferring, and I want everybody to weigh in if you're called. How has the intersectional approach shaped sapphic publishing? How is it reshaping sapphic publishing? So intersectionality, just real quick, I used to teach it and research it, but we have an expert. So it's in essence all those identities, especially subordinate identities, coming together, fusing together. You cannot separate them, and they're informing your place in the world. They also inform the world. So if you can study those, you can see the cracks and oppressions and bigotry. How again has intersectional approach shaped sapphic publishing?
I think you should go. No, you should absolutely. The reason is because you said, how has it shaped sapphic literature? And I can't really say that per se, because, as I said, the concept of sapphic literature is new to me. But I would say that how intersectionality has affected the world, real life, and also literature, I think, and art of various kinds, is that it has, of course, made it a huge amount better than it would ever be without those kinds of perspectives and with those kinds of understandings. What we were trying to do with the Combahee River Collective Statement was to assert again that we had a right to be alive on the planet. Now, in this current under this current regime, and in this particular moment, that is absolutely questioned, and not only questioned, under attack. When we were talking about history and how it used to be is how it is now, because the project of this regime is to turn back not just the 20th century, but the 19th as well. Their fantasy would be to be living in the antebellum period, where people of African heritage and of non-European heritage were legally enslaved, where the theft of land, nobody blinked, at the theft of land, because that's what had happened. That's why the United States exists. And I'm talking about, of course, the indigenous people whose land this is. And also, of course, women were considered to be property. They want to go back to that in the worst way. And one of the reasons I say that they do is because we were so successful in overturning those kinds of narrow conceptions of what was worthwhile as far as human life was concerned. We turned the whole thing over. And that happened in my lifetime. From what I can see, it didn't start in my lifetime, but like all the things that we think that we're allowed to do and that we have access to, those things in my earliest years did not exist. And we changed things. All the things that we that we take for granted when I was growing up, like the fact that I could walk into the front door of this hotel, for example, all of that did not exist. So intersectionality really makes a world for a world and a society that is worthy of humans living and thriving in it. Anything else means that you're living in this little narrow, blinkered kind of an existence where only certain people matter, and the rest of us, to hell with us. And as I said, sadly, that's where we're living now. Did anybody notice all the wonderful things that happened on a federal level during Pride Month? Not. I mean, every ugly, despicable thing that could happen to make sure that we knew that all of us, all that are like us and not like us, but still not cishet and white, males, that make sure want to make sure that they know, that we know that they're in charge and that we are under, their feet. But one of the things about intersectionality, not only does it let us know about how systemic oppressions interlock, as we said in the Combahee River Collective Statement, to create the conditions of our lives. Not only does it help us to understand how those systems interlock, it also gives us a path forward to smash them. So within, the analysis of intersectionality is also, as I just said, the pathway, our pathways plural, for how do we eradicate this kind of bigotry, this kind of oppression, this kind of dehumanization, this kind of impoverishment, all of the things. So it's not just, wow, things are really bad because there are all these isms, even more isms than we knew about or thought about when we wrote the Combahee River Collective Statement. It's not just how bad it is. It's like, okay, so that means that all the people who are being treated this way and who are not living in a just society we actually have something in common with each other, and if we can see that, then we can.
Well, and really, I apologize. I just stepped right in. Did you?
Oh no, I'm finished.
Okay.
I don't know. I saw someone make a time sound. Were you doing a time sound? Okay. I was being paranoid. I was being paranoid.
No one's shutting you down. I promise. No one's shutting you down. So what struck me as you were talking about that this Combi River collective statement and also your work as publishers going, not only people matter. We have to write ourselves into the world, make our stories real, but you also brought up the V word, valuable. We are valuable. Luke, for example, has talked in interviews of that there you write, and I'm coming back to you, JJ, in just a second. Luke has talked about the importance of, characters, protags who are transmass, for example, have historically been invisible and silenced in stories. JJ has talked about the importance of bringing in, for example, your Cuban heritage. So first, Luke, I'd love to get you in here, but I'm going to go to JJ. Rise of intersectionality. How are you seeing that impacting Sapphic publishing, Sapphic literature?
I mean, Sapphic is such a broad umbrella as it should be. But sometimes that's the only thing we all have in common. And I think, Ray, when you said this isn't the culture you grew up in, well, it's not the culture probably 95% of us grew up in. So we come with our culture of our family, our heritage, whatever that may be, and then we meet here together. And that can sometimes feel foreign, I think, in ways that isn't really foreign, because all human experiences share really a lot of common threads. And so I think, and if you've ever heard me say this, I always call it like hiding the vegetables. And it's like, don't worry, it's not like a diverse book. It's not homework. But I think when we brought in what we think we want to read, and try reading Sapphic literature of any kind from anyone who's writing it and giving you the flavor of their life, I think you tend to find more commonality than you think. And I do think people are capable of either learning something, which is great, that's why we read, or connecting with something you could not have imagined you'd ever connect with. Because I think it's like, if you come from a matriarchal family, you are going to see yourself reflected in my books, because it's like a strong grandmother, and that sets a rhythm to your family, and that's very common in a lot of cultures. So I think I do find people are more willing to try different things that they thought maybe, oh, well, this isn't for me, I'm not going to get it, and finding that, well, you do get it, and also we still have this unifying thread of bringing our culture into our Sapphic-ness. And I feel like there's a lot to connect with there. And I don't know, I find people are more and more willing to try something. But I'm surprised of people who say, it's like, I've never read something like this. And it's like, is it that different? I don't think so. But that's all.
Thank you, Jim. Luke, would you mind weighing in?
I'm sitting here thinking about like what our audience is, like when those who are writers, when you're writing a book, who are you intending to read it, right? And I've been thinking about this a lot because I have been in the Sapphic community for many years, fanfic, just the people I surround myself with. And when I started to transition, I was very, very scared that I would lose that.
You were scared you were going to lose the community?
The Sapphic community, yeah. But I still, to my heart, I love writing women who love women. Even though I don't really identify as a woman anymore, I lived most of my life as a woman, right? And those sensibilities, because I'm old, but sensibilities, there's still like I still feel those qualities that make a woman, but just with a different presentation, I guess. But yeah, so I'm thinking about the type of readers we want to bring in. Of course, we want to write because we love to represent who we are, right? And we want readers to find themselves in our books. But I'm thinking about a wider spectrum, especially with our books being banned right and left, right? But just getting to almost like a wider audience and bringing them into our experience as well, because that breeds empathy. Absolutely. And I don't know if I've even answered the question, but I have a straight, cishet, white neighbor, and he knew me before my transition, and we got to talking, and he asked what I did, and I write queer fiction, right? I write living women, and he looked at me for a second, and he said, "Really?" I'm like, "Yes, really." And he goes, "Well, do you have a pen name?" He seemed very interested, and what I'm thinking is, man, if he just picks up a book and reads the back of it, and he'll be a little bit welcomed into our world, and maybe gain some understanding, because I think that's the thing, in this state of the world where ignorance is, people are proud of their ignorance. I just don't understand. But I think if we can get just a little crumb in there for them to say, okay, this is different. I'm not used to this. This isn't my experience. But I can read the experience of this person and realize, geez, maybe I have it really good. I've never experienced something like this, and I think that at this point, I think we need to cast wide nets. We need to put ourselves out there. I didn't cry on the other 2 pounds I was on, so I knew it was going to come. But really, I think about, I pass now, I get called sir, and that makes me feel, amazing. I can sit in male spaces and hear all kinds of crazy shit. And sometimes I'm really scared to say, well, that's so fucking misogyny. You don't even know what you're saying. But there's been instances where I've been around 2 or 3, and I'm like, I'm a trans guy, and let me tell you what women really think. So cast wide nets, have those conversations. Writers, pass your books out, talk about it. I mean, you probably do, but strangers, you'll be surprised. Some will be very oh, thank you, but others are good. And maybe even it's just polite. Maybe one day they'll be like, gosh, I remember talking to that queer person, that lesbian. And I wonder what this is about.
So, Luke, you talked about casting a wide net, and this is a question for all of you, and whoever wants to answer. What voices and stories continue to be absent from sapphic literature that we perhaps need to centralize a little bit more?
Well, who's not here? Look around and see who's not here.
Who's not here?
Who's not here?
Who's not here? So
how many? And I'm not asking for a show of hands, but I can still count on both hands how many black folks are in the room. I can count on both hands how many Latinos are in the room, how many Asian Americans are in the room. indigenous folks. I mean, who's not here? Who's not here that we know about, right? And those are the folks that we want to bring into the room. And just to tag on, when we talk about lived experiences, when we talk about different perspectives, I want to know what joy and wonder through someone else's lens looks like, right? We talk about finding joy in seeing ourselves. I want to see that joy through someone else's eyes, right? Because it's a limited view. Show me what's amazing, what empowers you from where you are, wherever you are, whoever you are. But that's the first thing that comes to mind is, who are we pushing aside? Who don't you see?
I'd like to speak to that too.
And Rad, I saw you too.
I'm so sorry.
No,
Yeah.
no, you're not doing anything wrong.
Yeah. We're not supposed to say we're sorry, but I do all
No,
the time.
you guys are polite. You're very polite to one another. It's
Right.
lovely to watch. Thank you.
Well, I'm really glad you said what you did because I'm not in sapphic queer spaces, that were constituted to be that, I am in those spaces at times, but this is unique. This is a conference. This is hundreds of people, and I thought, wow, this just feels so familiar. And the first response was like, oh, this is great. This reminds me of going to the National Lesbian and Gay Task Force. So many of those conferences back in the 80s and the 90s, and then I thought also just what you just said is like, yeah, it's so white. It's still so white, and the legacy of Jim Crow and of segregation in the United States is deep and profound because, of course, white supremacy has never ended. That's not necessarily our subject matter today to figure out, because we'd be here for the rest of the year, at least. But the thing is that to figure out why is it that this many decades later, somebody in my age group can come into this kind of a space and have the same kind of like, oh yeah, but it is so white, no solutions, but I think that what we were talking about just a few minutes ago about intersectionality through literature is really that can be really important. And then also, since we're talking about history, there's a history of at least Black. I know more about Black interventions in this regard that have like Black queer literary spaces, conferences, publications, etc. And just, I don't know if I'll get to say this, any other time. I identify more or as much as queer now as I do as lesbian. And even though queer, as what we have discussed, has been an incredibly pejorative term, but it's been reclaimed. And to me, queer is more expansive than lesbian, and I'm understanding that sapphic is more expansive too.
Thank you. Brad.
I wanted to just comment on something JJ said in terms of the readership and embracing the concept of intersectionality in publishing. As a publisher and an author, I've certainly seen in the last 10 years a much bigger, maybe not 10 years, maybe more like 8 years, a bigger effort on authors to be more diverse in the works that we're writing in terms of attempting to incorporate different ethnic characters with different sexual identification, and there always then becomes the issue, is this an own voice novel? And that's an entirely new and new thing, and for some authors can be scary, for some publishers can be problematic. What probably about 6 years ago, maybe a little bit longer, I gave a keynote address on diversity in publishing and in lesbian fiction at the time. And what I found after looking at the data was that readers wanted to read more diverse works, but they didn't actually buy them. They thought that the idea was great and everyone supported it, but readers tended to purchase books about people like them. And I think this is changing, and certainly that appears to be more your experience, and I think as a publisher we're starting to see that, but I can tell you we're not there yet. I think that if you want to support diverse authors and diverse works, we need to buy them. And the other thing I wanted to say is I agree completely that this room is very white, but it costs money to come to these conferences. And I think that's part of it too. And we need to find ways to reach the reading population that can't afford to come here. And certainly going forward, where it may become more and more difficult to have other avenues to reach our readers, we have to learn how to use other avenues to reach our community and keep our community together.
I can't let it go. I appreciate the point. I absolutely agree. So when you hear what comes out of my mouth next, please know that I agree. I'm not going to continue. Okay, that's fair. Make us want to come.
Yeah.
Good. I'm not saying that we don't need to make things more accessible for folks who can't come to these spaces, right? And Dorothy Allison would smack me upside the head if I left out rural folks
and poor white
folks, so that everybody can be here. Okay, but we got money. Make us want to come. I feel as if we can't have these conversations, and I'm glad you brought it up first. That we can't have these conversations where, and this has come up a couple of times over the course of the week, arts and capitalism. And yes, we want those voices. Yes, we want those stories. Yes, we want to hear from all of those folks. But at the same time, they don't make any money. Okay, why is that? And a lot of the time, I think it's a matter of having more conversations about data and approach and marketing and being in the right places to meet the right people. And I understand that there's a lot of work. I just want to speak to the fact that the work has to get done so that we want to be here. I am here for a number of reasons, but one of them is I learned long ago to be okay being the only black person in the room. And it's a heavy lift. And people aren't afraid to do it, but there are a lot of folks in this country from all walks of life, from all backgrounds, all perspectives, who just I don't need to go do the work. I don't need to go deal with being the only person in the room. I don't need to. Not that they're afraid, but that it's a heavy lift and they don't necessarily want to do it. I have only recently reached the point of telling y'all to do your own homework. I think I say it everywhere I go, but not everyone wants to do the work of being in that space. So figure out how to meet them halfway, or quite frankly, based on historical record, maybe you should go a little further.
Yeah.
So,
we good?
So and we're coming to JJ in just a second. Who wanted to weigh in again? Just let's pause and reflect. We've got to cast a wider net. Who's not here? Who is not here? Readers also have to buy books that are from absent voices, traditionally absent voices. Make us want to come to these spaces. And that is, and I want to come back to JJ, what is our responsibility? What is our responsibility as writers, as readers, as organizers to capture, and publishers, to capture a wider array of rich stories that are about real lived lives? JJ, do you want to?
And I wanted to, I was trying to think of how to say this that doesn't sound, well, I'm just going to say it. So,
we love you, JJ.
Okay. I'm only a publisher of one, right? So, I don't have the kind of data other people have. I've never published anyone else. I'm very successful. And I don't think people, and I just don't think people want to read something because it's Hispanic History Month and I gotta check it off the list. It's Black History Month. It's, Trans Week. You only get a week. I'm sorry. And now, and
it was non-binary day 2 days ago. They
it's
get
just
one
day.
One day.
I get one day.
One
I'm
day.
sorry.
Live it up.
And I think people are really good at making lists. I'm on 7,000 lists on Hispanic Heritage Month. I can't remember if they've changed it here. I don't mean to be flippant about that if I'm saying it wrong. But the thing is that makes you feel good in the moment. I'm going to repost this list of books I'm not reading. Awesome.
Make a nice graph.
And this is where I don't know if this is the right answer, because I think it's important to highlight the fact that these books have these characters so that the people who want to find these characters can identify them, versus not having this separation of this is this kind of sapphic romance. I mean, I primarily write romance, so this is this kind of sapphic literature, or this is a Black romance, versus this is a romance, this is a horror, this is a thriller, whatever it is, and let people come to the story, because I think it's like with our best of intentions, and I could be absolutely wrong, correct me if I'm wrong, with our best of intentions, I think when we flag things as other, we make it scary and different, and, well, that's probably not for me. And I've done that. We're human. We're readers. And you see somebody like, oh, it's probably not for me. I'm not going to get it. Except if you like to read, and especially romance, you are looking for people falling in love. We will give that to you. And it just may not be the flavor that you're used to immediately, but it won't make a difference. It won't. So I struggle between flagging our diverse books as diverse and othering ourselves and making it feel like a hurdle. It's just, y'all, life is hard, and you want to read for fun, and if it's just that one thing too many, you're not going to do it. It's like just one little, well, all right, I have to check it off the list. I'm going to put it on my TBR. So thank you to put us on your TBR, but, like, it's only beneficial to us if you give it a try and actually read it and see whether you like it. And also, it's like, we're not a monolith. We can only represent one kind of story. So if you read something by me and you're like, oh, maybe this is it for me, read someone else and give them, a try. It's like, I can't represent everyone. None of us can. So anyway, I just wanted to say, I have been successful. I think people have been super generous to me and willing to read my silly little words on a page. But I think sometimes we do ourselves a disservice by separating it out. I don't know, but I could be.
Is this showing the vegetables?
This is showing the vegetables.
I want to say something about the books not selling. I just want to share sales figures from Kitchen Table Women of Color Press, which, as I mentioned, was active from 1981 until around 1995. Our best-selling book was this Please Call Me Back, Writings by Radical Women of Color, co-edited by Cherie Moraga and Gloria Anzaldúa. It was originally published by a white lesbian publisher, Persephone Press. They went out of business, so the book became a kitchen table book. We sold around 100,000 copies of that book. One of the reasons I was thinking, for the purposes of our conversation today, one of the reasons that it sold to that degree is because there was a movement called an anti-racist feminist movement. Not the entire women's movement, but there was an anti-racist component of the second wave of the women's movement that had been schooled to understand that they needed the kind of book that this Bridge Call My Back was. So it didn't fall into a vacuum, And this Bridge Call My Back is still in print. So who knows how many copies it has sold over its lifetime. But as I said, the little press that was on the first floor of my house in Arbor Hill in Albany it was 100,000. The second our second best-selling book was my book, Homegirls, a Black feminist anthology. It was published in 1983, as I mentioned, so there's a 40th anniversary edition of that from Rutgers University Press, and it had sold almost 30,000 by the time the press stopped functioning, and it was republished by Rutgers in 2000, the year 2000. And then, as I said, there's a new 40th anniversary edition. Now, these numbers, our first printings of both books was 5,000. We started at 5,000. This is in a period when there was no internet, no fax machines. The only way you communicated was by letter, by phone, or by telegram. That's what we were able to do then. The notion that our books didn't and wouldn't sell was obviously a fiction, but there was also someone, namely me, who had an innate kind of understanding of what needed to be done to help books to sell and to make books sell. That was my favorite part of being a publisher: publicity, marketing, and promotion, and graphic design. I cared less about editorial because it was too much like grading papers. So, in order to have something to promote or to design and then promote, you had to do the editing stuff. But anyway, the reason I wanted to share that with you is that think about how many decades ago it was. What we did to find our audiences plural, and that can still be the case. We would make a point of going to Asian American book fairs. We would make a point of going to Latin American book festivals. I made a point of it. I'm a Black person. You see what I'm saying? It's this whole way of understanding, who the audience is, and who you want to reach. And all I ever wanted to do, and I think you mentioned this, if they just look at the back cover, I said, all I want is for them to take the book home. I said, I don't care what they do with it afterwards, because they may put it on a shelf and maybe on a table somewhere, and their niece or our son or somebody is going to come in, see the book, and the book will probably change their life. Yeah. But the thing is, the only way that can happen is if the book goes home, with someone. But you can tell I love that part of it.
So what I really appreciate about this conversation as we pivot and we've talked about again what are our roots and moving into today and thinking about what we want to harvest from yesterday and today in order to go into tomorrow. Neely, I'm going to come to you, Elena. What concerns? Yeah, I'm going to come to you just right now. What concerns related to Sapphic publishing take up real estate in that wonderful brain of yours?
Oh, what concerns haven't taken up? I'm neurodivergent and I have chronic anxiety. So you cannot imagine how many concerns live at the same time in this brain. Now I have a new concern because I don't know how many. You see what you did?
Now I'm anxious about being anxious. Oh my gosh.
Exactly. There are many. There are many concerns. There are many. But I want to talk about two particular things. And I think on both of those, the call is coming from inside the house. I want to talk about AI, and I want to spin that conversation a little bit. Because there isn't a single author among us. There isn't, in fact, a single person who has put anything out there in writing whose words have not been stolen. And I use this word with firm conviction because what has been done to our words is theft. Have been stolen and fed into a machine, into a soulless machine, to then make money off of it. There isn't a single person here. All your social media, everything. Your words are out there and they have been used, they have been stolen. But this also creates the sort of the obviously reasonable pushback against the use of AI. but it also creates witch hunts. And I'm seeing this a lot more. When we were getting ready for this panel, I was like, I'm going to get up here and I'm going to be so militant about being against AI. Because how can you? These are our stolen souls, our tears, our blood, our everything that we put on these pages. And you're taking it, and you're stealing it, and you're using it, and you're making money off of us, off of our pain. Because so many of us put pain and trauma and our history and our personal heartbreak on these pages in this literature. I love the word. And yet it is used so cavalierly to write 3-sentence emails in corporate worlds, or to make $3 as an AI book on Amazon by unknown name people hiding under pen names. How dare you? That was going to be like the essence of my speech. But then I'm starting to see a lot more situations online when my peers, authors who work very, very hard, who I know personally, whose books I adore, are being openly accused of using AI based on dashes and
we just
commas
don't know how to use
in
commas.
strange places. Listen, I love a good dash. I love a good comma. In fact, I have too many. My editor is in the room. She won't let me, slide. She's taking a lot of my commas away. I want them back, Heather. I want them back. Every single one of them. I want them back.
Agreed.
One day I'll have my commas back. And I see a lot more. Oh, this person published 4 books last year. They're using AI. I will never read this person again. This person is, having these dashes too many in their sentence, and I will never read this person ever again. And then there are lists being made. Oh, I love a good list. So do many other people. Please don't make lists. Please don't defame people on baseless suppositions. Internet is forever. These lists are going to be circulated forever. And there's literally no proof. Don't read a book. Read a book. Choose a book. Don't choose a book. But the witch hunts against honest people, against nobody, have no proof of them using AI. This has to stop. And more often than not, the people who do it, this is us. This is our own community. Because I keep talking this week about how the sapphic leaders are social justice warriors, and we are one of the first communities to pick up causes. Because there's so many causes against us, we are also very socially conscious. We are on the forefront. We are on the barricades on so many causes. You name a band, we're going to be there with a banner. And then it is disheartening to see us going against our own. There are a lot of people right now who are very willing to hurt us. Let's not do their job for them. And on the exact same of let's not cannibalize our own, it is extremely disheartening to see transphobia and biphobia amongst our own. It is extremely disheartening to see it in our own spaces, to see the exclusion and the lack of intersectionality in our own spaces. It is extremely disheartening to see a trans person leave a panel in tears amongst ourselves here, this very conference. It is extremely disheartening that bisexual authors have to hide their marriages to the opposite sex for years because they are afraid, because the history of them being excluded for being married to men, because the history of them being harassed, because the history of I will never read a book written by a bisexual author if they're not married to the right person. we have all seen this. Let's not do the work of the oppressors.
So, So, Melina, thank you so much. So, AI takes up real estate, witch hunts, and the internalized biases and the internalized war take up space. Rosalind, what takes up the space in your mind about Sapphic publishing now and where it's going?
Space, mine. So, Melina very astutely mentioned AI in writing and ChatGPT. We also have had conversations within the Sapphic community about art, and specifically AI-generated covers, which of course scrape the art of real artists without permission or compensation. I'm going to say I don't think it's acceptable for our authors to use AI cover art, and I think for the most part I see a lot of people nodding. We want
marketing images.
Marketing images, anything. And some people will push back against that. Happy to have those conversations, really don't mind, but I do think that this sort of proliferation of the idea that, like, we don't have to think anymore, we don't have to create anymore, a machine can do it all for us, isn't that wonderful? Isn't it? It's like, they don't realize that the sci-fi dystopia books were warnings and not instruction manuals. And I wish I could take credit for that joke. I heard it somewhere else, but it's stuck with me forever. I'm also going to talk about a little bit about book piracy, which is something that a lot of authors in here are concerned about, people uploading the books and then downloading them for free, and then doing it under the guise of egalitarianism, and books should be free for everyone. Yes, they should. Advocate for our books to be in your libraries. Advocate to your representatives to fund our libraries, to have more voices, including more queer voices. And on the rare occasions that I've done something real stupid and gone to talk to people on Reddit, and specifically, book spaces with people saying, here's a great website to download all your favorite books for free. And I would go in and say, look, I'm a writer. We all want to be compensated fairly for our work, don't you? Would you appreciate it if your boss told you to work for free because you really like your job? I don't think so. And never once was I met with any kind of, oh, that's a good point. The response I always got was, well, I was never going to buy your book anyway, so what's the point? I don't buy books. I only download them. Nobody's lost a customer in me. And it was baffling. But they still want the books. And so I thought, what about this metaphor where you walk into Target and you see a lamp and you're just like, well, I kind of want that, but not enough to pay for it. So I'm just going to take it, and I think that that's fine. Why is security stopping me? This seems like it should be okay. So just this sort of, technology is wonderful. Technology has, created fewer barriers than ever to writing and to building community and connecting with people that otherwise you'd never have heard of and you'd never seen in your life. But to some extent, the flip side of that, I do think, is a loss of empathy. And just not seeing the warning signs that are in front of us everywhere we go. And we would love to think that as the Sapphic community we are exempt from that, but we're really not. So that keeps me up.
We're getting ready to come to questions. Thank you so much. Rhea, though, I want to get you into this question about kind of what takes up real estate, because you are well known for your friendships, your being friends and mentorships and mentoring young or emerging authors. What takes up real estate in your magnificent mind?
I've been sitting over here sort of thinking about it. A lot of things have been hit on here, but the thing that I keep going back to is the right of self-determination for every person. And that, I think, does tie toward mentorship, but the idea that everyone here has a story worth telling, and everyone here has a right to tell that story for themselves. They get to categorize that story for themselves, They get to decide which parts of it are important for them. I'll tell the story quickly. I did tell it in another panel earlier, but someone helped me think about it differently. My last book came out. It's got a non-binary person who's undergone top surgery, and when I uploaded the metadata to Amazon, I listed it on the sapphic chart and also the trans chart. There is no non-binary chart on Amazon, and everything went great for a few days. It shot to the top of both charts. I'm sitting over here very proud, and then it disappeared. It wasn't on any charts for a few days, and I finally got an email from Amazon saying that I had participated in misleading marketing and that the book was under review. And I petitioned to have a review of that, and they did agree to put it back on the sapphic chart, but they said it could not also be on the trans chart for whatever reason. They will tell me why. They said you can be sapphic, but you can't be trans. And
you can be sapphic, but you can't be trans.
I guess Amazon still uses lesbian. They're like, so this can be a lesbian book, but it can't be a trans book. And I got all up in my feelings. I spent some days feeling very, very hurt. And it's been through some conversations at this con that several people have pointed out that is the type. I don't think Amazon cares at all about me or my book, but this separation, this deliberate separation of our community, and that the idea is that we got too big, which made us too powerful. When we are the LGBTQIA community, we are a force to be reckoned with. We had tremendous gains politically and socially. They could not fight the LGBTQIA community successfully, but they can fight the trans community when they separate us from all of the other letters. This is a classic divide and conquer. So when they are telling us, you can't be both, you can't be sapphic and trans, they don't care about my feelings. They don't care that I take that to my therapist and talk about it. They care about how we organize and define ourselves. That if we say, all of these stories are our stories, this is not a trans story or a lesbian story. This is our stories, and we all have ownership over them. We become a force. We become a buying force. We become a political force. We become a societal force that is much harder to fight. And that, when I think about the stories that I want to foster in the authors that come to work with me through Bywater, through my website, through the GCLS Writing Academy, I see it as movement building. I see it as political coalition building to empower each person not to decide between their identities, but to embrace the fullness of all of them, sapphic and trans, sapphic and black, sapphic and indigenous, sapphic and intersex, right? When you asked who was not in this room, the thing that popped into my head, this stat blows my mind. Intersex folks are almost exactly parallel in the population to redheaded folks. Think about how many redheaded folks you know, and then think about how many intersex people you know. And if that number doesn't line up, there are stories you are not hearing in your own lives. So for me, when I think about what I'm mentoring and what I'm concerned about, it's the same thing. And it is living into our fullness instead of letting other entities divide us. Thank you.
We're going into the Q&A before we do. And I know that we're running out of time. I just want to say a heartfelt thanks to the panelists. This is new. It is new, and they came on board with generosity and fearlessness. And they know me a little bit, but not very much, and yet put themselves here with you. So thank you. I also want to thank you. This is new. And the energy is weird these days. And we can feel joy. And we can feel terror. And in the same moment. Thank you. I also want to thank Betsy. Betsy, who thought up the idea and then gifted it to me, someone she didn't know very well. She didn't. I want to thank Karen Richard, because Karen has, as I have told a number of you, I've had feral raccoon energy for a number of days now, and so poor Karen has had to deal with me showing up at her trash can every morning going, What's going on? What's going on? So if I appear any bit competent, just the slightest bit of competence, I want you to walk up to Karen and say, thank you for reeling in that. Woo. I also want to thank the AV team. What a professional. What a professional. And Chris and the people who set up this room, exceedingly professional, exceedingly caring about every requirement that I have. Every requirement. So thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. You know, the truth of it is, again, if you're doing your job, and this, you know this, if you're a housekeeper, if you're in AV, if you're setting up the room, if you're doing your job, you become invisible. So people don't know that how awesome you are. They just get to benefit. And so make sure you say thank you. The other two people I want to thank, because we're turning over, is we've got Tressa back here and we've got Jade. Woo! They have patiently been at work, but in such a quiet way you don't know. So now raise your hand if you have a question. I saw your hand up first, middle of the row, right here with the beanie. Right there, if you'll come to the end, if it's possible. Jade, thank you very much. And if you don't mind, give us your name. If you have to leave, yes, thank you. Go ahead.
Hello, DJ Slaw here. So, Virginia, you mentioned being the only person in the room once or prior. I have always felt like the only person in the room, especially amongst you all, because I am transmasculine. I look like this. Thank you. Appreciate you. Thanks, Bryce. And so there have been times where I'm walking amongst you all, and there have been sidelong glances. And so, Virginia, being in those situations where you are the only person in the room, mentally, how do you cope with that? Because mentally, for me, it can be a lot.
I think at this point, I have to disappoint you because I'm a bit inured to it. I take really weird risks. I sold a book to those baseball dads in the bar.
Yeah!
I learned early on that and where my comfort zone was, which to be fair, may be a bit larger than some, that if I wanted to live the life that I wanted to live, I had to do things differently from the way I was told to do them. So I don't have the best answer for how I did that. I think I just, I've gotten used to the discomfort.
We are unfortunately running out of time, and so what's going to happen? I'm going to take another. May I take
Anna? I'm sorry to interrupt. Yeah, I just wanted to say to the person who just asked that question, I've been in that situation too, of course. And one of the ways that it's possible, although it can just feel absolutely debilitating while it's happening, is to know that your people are with you, although not necessarily physically at that moment. Is to think about the people who understand, know, and love you, and what
all the best things with and for you, and we will see you later. That's
I'm going to apologize to you. It's been such a wonderful conversation. The hardworking people who work in facilities that have to turn over the room. They just have to. And we're not going to impede that. However, I invite us, could we please go outside? If you're able, would you make yourself available? If we can go outside and commandeer registration. So please don't run away. Walk up and ask your questions. Please let us step out and go to registration. And first off, applause.
We missed one question that I was
Thanks, Anna.
geared up for.
Thank you. Registration. Don't run away. We've got some questions.